Hey funnel builders, Mike here from Sell Your Service, and today I want to talk to you about the 5 most important books on money that I think every single marketing funnel business owner should read. Starting off with number 1, I've got it down as Money by Rob Moore. I think it's called Money, How to Make More, Spend More, Earn More, and Get More to Work for You. It's by a guy called Rob Moore, who is a UK entrepreneur. What I really like about this book, and I think why it's so important to read, is it's a really in-depth view on how money has been used throughout the ages, but it also uses stories from Rob's own life. Now, Rob is a multi-millionaire. He's a social media guru who runs one of the, if not the most popular podcast on the internet at the moment, or certainly one of them. He runs the top one called The Disruptive Entrepreneur. He's written many books such as Routine Equals Results and Life Leverage. He owns a lot of property. He owns a property company. There's a ton that Rob Moore does, but he started out as an artist, a very poor and not very wealthy and not very well-known artist. And he has gone on this journey to become very wealthy, financially free. He's done some amazing things. He also does some pretty cool stuff with social media and YouTube and Facebook. His podcast is fantastic. And the book basically goes through all of the excuses that a lot of people have about money, such as, well, all rich people are wankers, or the top 5% of the world control all of the wealth. Really interesting statistic about that. It is a staggeringly low number that you have to earn per year for you to be a part of that top 5% of the world. So chances are, if you're watching this, you're as much a part of the problem as you are part of the solution. But it also talks about the physical and also the philosophical sides of money, how a £5 note or a $5 note can be used so many times that it's not just worth $5, it's worth every single time it's transacted through that entire period of that life. So a £5 note, for example, is worth about, I think it worked out like 2 million, maybe even more, because of the amount of times that it can be used through the process. It also talks a little bit about how to begin earning more yourself, understanding that in order to earn more money, you have to be open to the concept of money. Money is a servant to you rather than your master. So you need to learn how to use money. So yeah, Money by Rob Moore. That's my first book. My second book is a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I interviewed Mike a little while back. I think Profit First was probably one of the biggest revolutions in my business. It turned us profitable almost overnight and gave me an idea of what it is that I need to do with all of my money. I also absolutely love the way that it breaks down pricing and money attraction and how to use money. There's loads of graphs and tables to be able to work out where you are, as well as give you a real revenue figure, which is something that I always had a difference of opinion with my accountant and my bookkeeper and me on how much money we were really making, but Profit First helped me see the real revenue figure that I make. So Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. It's quite a short book, very easy to read. He's a very good writer. He's written loads of other books. He's just released another one called Clockwork, which I'm currently reading at the moment, but he also wrote Surge and The Pumpkin Plan. But yeah, Mike kind of goes through this principle of being able to work out how much you need to put aside. So if you're ever thinking, I can't afford to pay myself, read Profit First, because it will teach you how to pay yourself, even if you're only earning a few $100 a month, and you can scale that out. If you've ever got a tax bill that surprised you, if you're ever short on money with suppliers, if you ever feel that your business maybe makes more every single month or every single year. Maybe you feel that every single month your business is making more money, but you never seem to have any left over. Read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Very, very good book. Book number 3 on my list is How to Own the World. It's by my friend Andrew Craig. Andrew used to work on Capitol Hill. He was also a stockbroker in New York. He's lived all over the world. He now banks on the square mile. He's an investment banker. But what Andrew found really scary was how many people didn't understand what a savings account was or what a pension fund is. Andrew basically takes us on this journey of how to own the world. So again, Andrew's English, he's British. Actually found out that he's part Maori, which is kind of cool. I like that a lot, obviously. I had a big connection with him over that. How to Own the World completely reframed all of the modern misconceptions about owning a house or renting or saving or pensions or working for a salary. And the idea is just by taking 10% of what you own and putting it into stocks and shares, you put yourself in a much better financial control. The difficult part is when we don't know what stocks and shares or funds to buy or even how to do it. And Andrew goes through this process in such staggeringly simple detail that it becomes the equivalent of opening your phone and using WhatsApp. I probably use now my Hargreaves Lansdown app more than any other app because I'm constantly just moving little bits of money across. I know what kind of fund that I want to go after, and I know what kind of stocks and shares that I want to buy, as well as putting a little aside in gold, keeping some in cash. But again, it just gives you a formula of how to do these things and how to be able to ultimately beat the market. Again, this is a long-term investment plan. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme at all. It's not to do with stocks or day trading or any of that kind of shit. This is an actual book on investment. But what it allowed me to do is think, well, any money that I get personally or the business gets, we're going to take 10% of that and we're going to put it aside in a special fund, and also we're going to split those up in, certain ways. The reason I absolutely love the book is it was probably the first book I read on the equivalent of investing, like investment. It was the first real book I got involved in that made me think about money and investing and stocks and shares and knowing what to go after in a fund and whether I should wait and whether I should buy and peaks and troughs. So yeah, very, very good book. If you're even slightly curious about how to save money and get better returns than in your bank, you should absolutely read How to Own the World by Andrew Craig. Next up is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad was probably the first book on money that I ever read. Robert Kiyosaki is the author. He's got a lot of other books such as Cash Flow Quadrant, Guide to Investing, Increasing Your Financial IQ. Regardless of what you think about Robert Kiyosaki, the book essentially talks us through some really well-known proverbs like pay yourself first, make sure it's scalable income, your money earns money, money is your servant, not your master. It's kind of semi-autobiographical because it takes Robert through the process from being a child, where his father, who was very well educated, one of the kind of top educators in his field, and he ended up having a few offices in government to do with education in Hawaii, but who never seemed to have any money. He never had any extra cash lying around. They could always say, oh, I can never afford it. Compared to his friend's father, who was working class, no good education, not a great background, but was considered he was a millionaire. And even when he was a millionaire, he still lived well below his means. And it takes us through a journey of being able to understand wealth and money and rich people and finances. And the tagline of the book is what the rich teach their kids that the poor can't or don't, or the middle class won't. And it really sheds an interesting light reading it, going through it, saying, I've been taught all of this stuff that he says is wrong. And at first, the book kind of pissed me off. It made me very angry. The cover is naff, like it's iconic now, like this purple cover with his face on it. It does look like a really naff, like self-help book, but the content within is absolutely outstanding. It's very easy to read. It's very amusing in some parts. I've got the book and the audiobook. I've read them and listened to them a couple of times now. The principles within Rich Dad, Poor Dad are ultimately what make a lot of these other books seem very, very obvious. My final book, though, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill was an author, very interesting life that he led, and he wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich based around the life of Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the wealthiest steel magnates. Well, he was one of the wealthiest people in the world. Now, if he had the equivalent wealth of what he had back then, when he died in 1923, what it would be worth now is $320-something billion. Very, very wealthy man. Think and Grow Rich is largely credited as being the forefront and the grandfather of the majority of self-help and wealth and money books. So yeah, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I didn't think it was that easy to read. I had to kind of push myself into it. I ended up getting the audiobook and then rereading it. The audiobook is very good. I highly recommend getting it. It's not necessarily cheap, but it's a fantastic book. And it essentially talks us outside of the principles of the more practical side of money management, where it takes things like percentages and funds and skills and investing and tools and things like that. It teaches us how the more we think, the wealthier and the richer that we'll become. So the more we think about wealth and money and ourselves as human beings, and the better we improve our self-image and the better we improve our knowledge, and the more we think and put out into the world, the more we attract. And if we value and think about money, then we will attract more money into our lives. And it's about being rich as well, and how you don't have to have millions of dollars to be rich. In fact, the book kind of challenges you to work out what it would take for you to be financially free. And that number is often staggeringly low. It's not necessarily the amount of money you have to earn. It's often to do with how much you keep and how much you save and how much you spend, as opposed to just what it is that you're making. But Think and Grow Rich is largely credited as kind of the grandfather of a lot of these books. I highly recommend Think and Grow Rich. It's often at the top of the, you know, best money books out there, or best self-improvement or business books out there. Absolutely outstanding book. Just a really short mention as well, George Clason, The Richest Man in Babylon, really short book. Go ahead and check that out as well, just as a little honorable mention there. Essentially, the quote is, 10% of all I earn shall be mine to keep, and it tells a series of parables and stories about a man in Babylon called Arcod, who learns to be able to keep a lot of money and where to put that money sensibly. But all of the, and it's set in Babylon, but all of the principles are applicable today in kind of scarily so, where we have to think, oh, well, we're so advanced now, we've got such amazing technology. In actual fact, things haven't really moved on since Babylonian times. So anyway, those are my top 5 books. Money by Rob Moore, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, How to Own the World by Andrew Craig, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and also George Clason's book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Let me know if you've read any of those in the comments below, or if you've got another book on money that you absolutely love. I had to kind of restrict it to 5. Maybe I'll do another 5, because there's probably about 50 in total that I absolutely adore and have read multiple times. Let me know in the comments below if I haven't mentioned the one that you've read, or if there's one that I should read that you absolutely recommend. Thanks very much for watching, guys. If you're new here, hi, my name's Mike. Consider subscribing if you're a new viewer. Hello. And in the meantime, I will see you on the next video. I've probably got a couple of videos either side that you can watch. And yeah, keep building those funnels. Cheers, guys.